Welcome to The Dogs Were Good Again. We have a very exciting interview today with Blaire Braverman, but before we talk to her, I must introduce you to our Adoptable special guest.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah, that looks like a good dog. A very good dog.
Please join me in welcoming Jessica. We haven't made eye contact yet. Oh, now we have. You have a uniquely human face to match your very human name. You are fun. You are very similar to our friend Jimmy from last week or 2 weeks ago. They were together in the Lancaster shelter. Jessica is a almost 5-year-old Yorkie Terrier mix. She's available for adoption from Real Good Rescue here in LA. She is approximately 9 pounds. Do you know how to do things? Come here. This way. And then this is your whole bed right here. This whole bed's for you. You're allowed to be on there. She looks like she doesn't know if she's allowed to exist. You have permission to be yourself on this show. Real Good says, Jessica came to us after 4 years with the same family and needed a minute to figure out who she was without them. She took that minute and now she's absolutely thriving in foster. She's locked in on this treat. Her foster mom calls her a little rocket, and that seems to be accurate. She is spunky, playful, full of opinions, and once she decides you are her people, she will bring you every single toy she owns. This is like week 50 where we talk about how great it would be to have a little toy basket, and we do not. There's no progress that's been made on that. Inside the home, Jessica is sweet, affectionate, and completely easygoing. She loves to cuddle, plays independently for long stretches with her squeaky toys, and is crate trained with zero separation anxiety. Zero. That's very impressive, especially for a rescue. Outside is where Jessica is still finding her confidence. She can get vocal on a leash when new people or sounds show up at the door. She has a lot to say about it. Once she has a chance to sniff someone out, she settles right down and is calm and sweet. She's good with dogs she knows best and does best when they respect her space. Hey, girl, same. Jessica is ready for a home that gives her clear routines, consistent structure, and people who understand that a little patience goes a very long way. Once again, available for adoption from Real Good Rescue. Jessica's adoption fee is covered, but not by a member of this community. She was actually part of a Twitch stream with Maya Higa. Maya, we're big fans. Would love to have you on the show. State Farm was part of that stream and had an arrangement where they sponsored a lot of the dogs that were featured. So she is also covered from that perspective. So very few barriers between Jessica and your couch. Can I pet you? You have an underbite. Did you know that? As I mentioned, our guest today is Blaire Braverman, a writer, adventurer, and one of the most beloved voices in the sled dog world. She ran the Iditarod in 2019 and spent nearly 2 decades building a life around her Braver Mountain sled dog team in Wisconsin. If you followed her online, you didn't just learn about mushing, you got to know her dogs by name. Pepe, Flame, Grinch, Colbert, Dora, Spike, Jenga, to name a few. The rest of the pack felt like family to a lot of people. This past spring, after 20 years, Blaire retired her sled dog team and rehomed the dogs to live out their next chapters as pets, something she wrote about beautifully in a major essay for the New York Times Magazine. She's also moving into new creative territory with a survival story podcast called What to Carry, What to Burn, and her first children's book, The Day Leap Sword. Please welcome Blaire Braverman. So Blaire, what initially led you to mushing? Because you grew up in California, right?
I did. I grew up in Northern California, and I had never seen sled dogs, but I loved being outdoors and I loved being in the cold. And so I had this idea that, like, if one were lucky enough, one could go out in the snow with dogs. And to me, it just seemed like the most magical thing in the world. So I had a golden retriever growing up, and I used to, like hold on to her leash when I was wearing rollerblades and pretend I was dog sledding. And then when I was 18, I moved to the Norwegian Arctic to become a dog sledder. And I had never once seen sled dogs in person at that point. It just was like, I read every book, I was obsessed, and I just like loved dogs and wanted to to do it full time.
I also grew up with Goldens, and I think it's like the perfect upbringing, especially if it's predictable that you're going to go on and love dogs if you grow up with
They're a
Golden.
gateway dog.
That's a great way to say it. That's a phenomenal way to say it. Wow. I didn't expect that.
Jessica, you're on the bed.
This is huge. Will she stay there?
Incredible.
Hopefully. So as a long distance dog sledder, you've competed in some of the toughest dog sledding races, including the Iditarod, which we will get to. How do you and the dogs train for something like that?
We train just by spending a lot of time in the woods. So sled dogs are really interesting physiologically because when they have run a lot of miles, when they are really trained up, they are some of the most efficient runners on the planet. So they can run like multiple marathons in a day. And then when you stop them, they're like angry that you stopped them. Like, it's like you stopped throwing a tennis ball or something. They're like, what the heck? We could keep going. Like, why? You're going to make us like nap and eat food now. And they just want to keep going. And it's actually really funny if you have a younger dog on the team, because they'll get so frustrated whenever you stop. And the older dogs, you can see them sort of like trying to calm the younger dog down. Like, it's okay, you'll get to run again tomorrow. But, it's just so magical because they love, the way to think about it is sled dogs they have the same instinct for running that other working dogs have for their tasks, so to speak. So, we were talking about golden retrievers. I grew up with like a golden retriever, and that like when you pick up that tennis ball, they never get tired of it. They never ever. It's just like the best thing ever. And that's the kind of energy that sled dogs bring. And so it's so addictive when you're out there with, a team of your best friends, and every single one of them is losing their mind because they're so excited about what you're doing.
You mentioned that. Oh, Jessica.
Jessica.
What did you think was up there? She really wants to. I didn't think she would steal the spotlight like this.
Are you kidding? I knew she would steal the spotlight.
You can do that again, but we have to talk to Blair. That's why
we should talk to her.
We're here for you, yes, but we're also here for Blair. You have to understand. She's looking at me with like the most human face a dog has ever had. Also,
what's she want? What do you have?
I have too many treats. Yeah. We'll ditch the treats for now. You mentioned just briefly that like is there like a mentorship between some of the older dogs and the younger dogs in a team?
Yeah, definitely. So my dog, who's lying behind me right now and is sort of refusing to be within the frame of the camera because she's 13 and does whatever she wants, has been a mentor to so many of the younger dogs on the team. And the way to think about it is like, especially a lot of the commands that sled dogs are learning are best learned from other dogs. Like, they don't necessarily know how to sit or stay or roll over, but they know how to like turn right and turn left and go around the snowmobile and don't chase the rabbit, or else I'm going with them, because I'm attached to them. What are you doing? She's right directly under my chair, and she's grunting because she hears me talking. And so sort of one of the best ways to teach that is to take a really experienced leader like Peppy and take a younger dog next to her. And then when I say turn right, G is the command for turn right, she will sort of like steer the younger dog. Or if I say turn left or stop or whatever, or go through the puddle, whatever it is, like she will steer the younger dog. And then they learn from her as much as they're learning from me.
That makes sense. Is what would you say like the percentage breakdown is of the training when it comes, is it more team building than it is physical? Like, again, you mentioned that these dogs are kind of like born for this, but like, is it more of the team building than the physical training?
No, it's definitely more physical.
Okay.
At least for what I do. I think that It's actually really shockingly easy to teach a sled dog to pull. You put a harness on them. You wait till they're old enough. Like I've always waited till they're at least a year old because you want their bodies to be fully developed. There's no rush. And for a moment, they're like, what's this harness? And then the dogs around them start running.
So sorry.
Yeah, of course.
We have to be quiet when they're drinking.
Okay.
It's like a little ASMR session. Good job. Sorry, it's like a little ASMR section. We have like a microphone right next to it. That sounded great.
Oh my God.
That sounded great.
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Jessica,
Please continue.
No, that's all right. I forget where I was. I got totally sucked into that moment. What was I saying? You put the harness on them.
Yep.
It is a matter of seconds before they look like they've been doing it for years. Like it's truly a matter of seconds. I would say the learning curve is learning to stop. That's much harder. It's much harder to teach them to rest when they want to keep going. And adjustment to dog booties. Sometimes they wear booties on their feet, on their paws, depending on the snow conditions. And they don't like that at first. They're doing this.
Yeah.
But once they have positive associations with the booties, then they get over that really fast.
That makes sense. For those of us who've never done it, which is most of us, can you describe what dog sledding feels like?
Ooh, that's a great question because there's nothing quite like it, which is what makes it so addictive. It feels, I've heard it described as water skiing.
Okay.
And I have never water skied, so I can't attest to that. But I think the similarities are that you're sort of balancing on your runners and you actually have no physical control over what's pulling you. So that really surprises a lot of people. They think, as a human, we're bigger than one dog. We can, hold a leash back or something. But when you get 6 or 8 or 14 dogs who are really excited and are all working together, physically, I can't make them go. I can't make them stop. I can't make them turn. It's all based on communication. And so there's this it can be scary at first because you are being pulled sometimes very fast, upwards of 20 miles per hour if they're going really fast, by dogs who, and you have no control. It's total trust. They're the ones who have all the power. And anytime they humor you by following your requests, it's because they feel like humoring you. And that's a lot of trust. And so it's this really interesting thing where physically you're sort of gliding through wilderness often, places where, you're seeing moose tracks and you're seeing northern lights above you and, just things you would never get to see. There's beavers or just there's animals around you. And the dogs see them before you do, or they smell them. You can tell where animals are because the dogs all perk their ears and turn their heads and they sense them before you do. And so you're sort of tapping into the dog's senses in a way, in a place where your senses really can't tell you all that much. They can't tell you what animals have been there or things like that. And then there's the feeling of just gliding like you're skiing or something, and it's silent, and all you can hear are the dogs panting and their little paws falling on the snow. And then this goes on for a really long time. You get into a rhythm. And a bad habit that I had for years into my mushing career was I would talk to the dogs and I would sing to them and tell them how great they were. And I was like, oh, they want to hear my voice telling them. I just make up songs with a verse about every specific dog saying all the things I loved about that dog.
Blair, that's very relatable.
And then finally I was in one race and I was actually running another musher's team. Sometimes he wasn't mushing, but he said he'd watched me mush and he said, you can run with my team. So I was getting to know his dogs and he said, just don't annoy them the way you annoy your dogs by talking to them and singing to them all that much. And I was so offended, but you have to respect someone's wishes around their dog. So I was like, okay, his dogs are used to quiet. And I kept my mouth closed. And like those dogs were so focused and they were so like, they were so calm and intense. And they like got into this rhythm I'd never seen before. And so then with my dogs, I tried it and they did the same thing. And I realized that the whole time I was talking and singing and I thought I was entertaining them, I was just distracting them. Like they were at work, they were focusing and they were hearing my voice. And, you know, we love each other. So they hear my voice and they think they should pay attention, but it was really taking them out of this thing that they were doing. And that really taught me, like, I'll go a couple 100 miles before I start talking. And then at some point, like, you know, if you're going up a mountain, then you start singing. But you know, you sort of have to trust them to do what they're doing and not micromanage. That was a lesson for me, for sure.
Yeah, you kind of have painted a rather glamorous picture of this. Well, I know that there's like, so I want you to kind of show us or talk about a little bit about we're talking about the Iditarod. Like that is something that is one of the most grueling. It has such a reputation. So maybe on the other side of the coin, what are some moments where it didn't feel like, maybe because you're using kind of the word like gliding, like I'm associating that with ease. So maybe give our audience a perspective on what makes this a challenge that so few sign up for.
It is an extraordinary amount of work. The dogs are running, and you as a musher are doing so much. So while the sled's moving, you're doing a little bit less, right? Like I might have a ski pole and I'm helping push it along, or if I'm cold or we're going uphill, I might jog next to the sled. But mainly as a musher, the time when you're working is when the dogs are resting. So, you know, a typical run rest schedule might be you like go for 40 miles, which rule of thumb takes about 4 hours, and then you would rest for 4 hours. So you're sort of going around the clock doing like, you run for a while and then you rest for a couple hours, and this just goes on. And when the dogs are resting, your goal is for them to rest completely. Like you're making beds for them, you're massaging them, you're putting, you know, cream on their feet, you're doing, you know, you're cooking food. You just want them to feel like they have a soft bed, they have a great meal, like they don't have to think about anything. But that whole time you're hustling, like you are, you know, taking care. If you're giving one dog a massage, it's one thing, but if you're giving 14 dogs a massage, that's a couple hours where you're massaging dogs. Or you, like, in order to get water for them, or everything's frozen out there. Right? So if you want water, you're either chopping through ice into a river or a lake, or you're starting a fire or a cooker and you're melting snow, and snow melts down a ton. So you need to melt a lot of snow in order to make enough water for that many dogs. And then you're cooking their food, or you're at least thawing it so it's not frozen. And it sort of turns into a stew. And if your sled needs repairs, those sleds have been through a lot.
Yeah.
And so you need to be switching out your sled runners. You need to be repairing things. You need to be caring for yourself in that kind of extreme environment. Like huskies, sled dogs are
built for it.
To a certain degree, they're built for the cold, but humans are not necessarily built for the cold. We have to compensate for ourselves. And so, you know, as mushers, you're out in the cold constantly. Usually, you know, you're cleaning up a lot of dog poop always, like that. Like for a solid decade of my life, I was spending an hour a day cleaning up dog poop. And
that is certainly the other side of the glamorous coin. So shopping
things, it's honestly like they eat a lot of raw meat, and you have to handle that yourself, and that's gross and heavy and requires a lot of chopping. Like there's just a lot of sort of tasks that are involved to get you to the point where you're gliding through the beautiful woods.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
You recently wrote a beautiful essay for the New York Times.
Thank you.
For anyone who hasn't read that, can you fill us in on what happened this spring?
I can, yeah. And I have a picture of the New York Times Magazine. I did get a concerned letter from a reader who said that this dog Dora's tongue is too long.
Honestly, Blair, it was the first thing I noticed.
I agree. Her tongue, I don't know what she's doing there. But I am stepping back now after a long time. I've been mushing for, more. Sorry, I have a dog making strange sounds again. I've been mushing for more than half my life, almost 2 decades. And this past year, I stepped back from serious racing, and I'm stepping more into a recreational role. And so in doing that, that's a big transition in my life. And I have a number of dogs who I've worked with for a long time they often retire to either pet homes or to, I have a good friend who does like dog sled tours and teaches like Boy Scouts how to mush. And he has a team of old sled dogs, only old sled dogs. And so a number of my dogs, when they've gotten, they've slowed down and they're not really able to do what I've been doing with the team, they go to my friend Jake's place and they become part of his team of old sled dogs. And so I gathered up a bunch of dogs who I had, not a bunch, 7 dogs who I had run Iditarod with 7 years before, and who I had known since they were puppies and who had sort of moved into retirement. And then we all went into the wilderness again for another mushing trip, just them and me, as a reunion. And also, I learned so much from them. I kind of wanted to learn, seeing these dogs who have done something they love so much and then transitioned into a new phase of their life. What can I learn from them as I'm doing the same thing? And so we went out of my friend Jake's place, which is called Chili Dogs in Ely, Minnesota, which I really recommend as a dog sled tour if anyone's interested. And the dogs and I went out into the wilderness. It was just a 2-day trip because our oldest dog, Colbert, who was part of the team, was really not able to run very much. So he really wanted to come, but we had to go just a few miles because we were sort of going his pace and his distance. And then we camped out and we all lay down on the snow to sleep that night. And I woke up at like 2 a.m. to a sound that was like barking really close. And I thought it was one of the dogs at first. And then I realized I could see all the dogs, and it was actually a wolf who was very, very close to us in the darkness. And I heard other wolves on the other sides of us. I have some video I could send you if you
That'd be
care
great.
for a clip.
That's super close.
But there was this wolf very, very close, a snowball's throw away. And he or she stood there barking for much of the night. And at first I was really scared because wolves can pose a threat to dogs. And then I saw that my matriarch of the team, Peppy, my dogs howled with the wolf for a moment, and then they were looking antsy, like their hackles were up. And then Peppy lay down, and she has taught so many of the younger dogs everything they know. She's taught me so much of what I know. And she's the dog who's under my chair right now, making strange sounds. And in her lying down, I was able to see, like, she was letting us know it was okay. And the wolf wasn't a threat. And so eventually the other dogs and I just lay down, and we got serenaded by this very close wolf for the rest of the night. And in the morning, I and several of the dogs tracked down the wolf's paw prints and saw where it had sort of circled our camp, and then stood on a little hill above us. And that's where it had been barking. And what I learned, I reached out to a wolf expert after that, and I described the sound. And they said that what I was hearing was called a bark howl, because it was sort of a bark that trailed into a howl again and again, like woof, 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 again and again. And they said it is a member of a wolf pack will sort of go next to an intruder and make that sound at length to indicate to the rest of the wolf pack that they shouldn't come nearby, that something might be dangerous. So actually that wolf was guarding the rest of its pack from me and my dogs, and was just sort of like standing over us to protect its family, which I thought was really, really sort of interesting and cool that we had that encounter.
I have chills. That's a very unique, I feel like that is such a unique experience that only those in your community could have. So I think grateful for you sharing that. And I think
it was beautiful. It was, I was really scared at first, but I was like, there's nothing I can do about this. So I'm just going to trust the dogs.
I think that is why you have such a prominent, passionate community, is because they share your love of dogs, but then you give them this window into a world that they likely won't experience. And that's a good transitional moment, because that's how we first encountered each other, just by having these online dog communities. And I'm wondering how they've reacted to your transition, and just where you see that community going from here as well.
So there's a really extraordinary community, right, as context, that has formed around this dog team over the years, and does sends cards to each other, and this bookshelf is full of art that people have made of the dogs, and it's such a beautiful group of people. And I was really nervous, given these sort of changes in my life and stepping back from racing, about sort of having this article come out and disappointing people, I guess, was my fear. And I think the amazing thing about this community is that anytime I have felt nervous about sharing something, I have been met with just complete love and grace. And so all I heard was all I got was love and understanding. And the community that sort of initially formed around my sled dogs has not remained focused on my sled dogs, I would say. It's a community that has grown into, doing, raising money for schools in the Alaskan interior, and sharing artwork, and following dog sledding in general, and working, getting involved in animal rescue. And so I love that I love so much that it has grown into something so much bigger. It feels more like I get to be part of something beautiful that I admire.
That's how I kind of approach it as well. I am a member of this community, and while I'm lucky and there's a responsibility in leading it, I share so much with this community that when I can visualize myself as just another part of it, I don't know, there's some pressure release there, and I'm very glad that was the reception, and that they were. Because that's leading with having, they're fans of you, in that, and they're showing that, instead of it being this very specific, I don't know, the internet can be ruthless, and I'm just very happy that you had that response.
It was so moving to me. And it reminded me of another time when I was in the Iditarod in 2019. I was so scared because I'd had sort of a really tight-knit community that had been supporting the team and giving encouragement and following the training. And then it sort of got a lot bigger quickly, because the Iditarod is relatively high profile. And so I was getting my team was getting a lot of coverage. And I remember being so nervous, because you're going through the wilderness, and I was so aware that at 24 hours a day, people were watching me as a dot on a map. Mm-hmm. And I'd stop at a river and I'd be like, are people watching my dot stop? And they're talking about it. And it was this very bizarre situation of being in such total isolation and also feeling so observed. And I was and a ton of people who start the Iditarod don't finish it. It has nothing to do with how good you are as a musher. It has nothing to do with how athletic your dogs are. You never know. Your dogs can catch a cold and your race is over. Or like all sorts of, your sled breaks. And with the awareness that I was being watched by so many people, I was really afraid of letting them down. And that, you know, people had a lot of excitement, and I was aware that I had brought people sort of joy and excitement. And I thought if I didn't finish, then I would be taking that away from people, that I would be the cause of unhappiness.
Yeah.
And that was like a big pressure I put on myself that I felt while I was out there. And then fairly early in the race, like 200 miles in, which is a couple days in, a musher I was with, who I was sort of aware, you know, especially because I was toward the back of the pack, and I was aware that like a lot of fans of my team were tracking and supporting a lot of mushers in the back of the pack, because a lot of us were rookies and new, and like it's a loving community that supports people who are trying something new.
Yeah.
She had to scratch from the race, and I forget exactly why. It just wouldn't have been good for her team and for her to continue at that point. And so she made a good call. And all of a sudden I like became aware of like this outpouring of love toward her from people in the community. Like I was sort of hearing whispers in checkpoints that like people were sending her cards and like sending her love and like telling her how much they supported her. And it wasn't like she had disappointed them. It was like they were so proud and happy to see someone doing something and like making the right choices along the way. And that, like, as soon as I saw that, and people they were helping her. They wanted her to know that like she had still been an inspiration. It wasn't a disappointment. It was the opposite. And as soon as I saw that, it like turned off that fear that I had. I remember just being on the trail and like crying and suddenly realizing the beauty of this community that I had sort of become part of. And realizing that like any fears I had were coming from me, not from them. And so there have been so many times over the years, you know, sharing a lot with people online when I have felt nervous about things, and it has always come from me. It has always, you know, the grace I've seen has always been so much greater than I would have imagined. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I'm glad that was your experience. I think the dog corner of the internet is giving the rest of the internet like a better reputation for sure. Looking back at this whole chapter of your life, is there something that the dogs have taught you about courage?
Yeah. So many things, but if I think, you know, what comes to mind first is probably not trying to do things alone. Like I can get so scared at a starting line. Because in my mind, I'm thinking about challenges and I'm thinking, how will I get through that? If we get to thin ice, if there's a blizzard, you know, these things, it's not an if, it's when you're going 1,000 miles, when you're going 100 miles, like these things will happen. And so at the starting line, I'm in my head sort of solo and I'm thinking like, what am I going to do? And that's really scary. But then actually, when I get to those obstacles, I'm not in them alone. I'm working with the dogs. And so it's never as scary as I think. And so now when I'm afraid of things in the future, I'm always thinking, okay, but I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to have my friends who I can reach out to, or my family, or, you know, just my dogs I can hug. And it helps me be less afraid of how I'll handle unknowns.
That's very well said.
Thank you.
You've also said that each one of your dogs has saved you at one point.
Yeah.
Is there a moment with regards to that stands out? Is there a specific story about whether it's the dog under your chair or any of the other ones?
Every one of them has some of them have saved me multiple times.
Some of them have not.
Some of them I have saved. Some of them are, they're all different. You know, yeah. Some of them get me into trouble and I have to get all of us out of it. But an instance of a dog saving me, I would say, I have a favorite story that people will have heard before if they've heard me talk. But when I was in a whiteout blizzard in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan a long time ago, gosh, almost a decade ago, and this whiteout blizzard came in so fast that I had no time to make it to shelter, and I was a couple miles away from a shelter up ahead, and the dogs and I were on a brand new trail. So they didn't know what was up ahead. Whenever you're on a new trail, you can't tell the dogs where they're going. You can't be like, okay, today on the map, we're going 8 miles. And then, that's the thing, that you can't communicate to them. And we stopped because we couldn't see. And the snow was so thick that I had to go hand over hand up the line of dogs, because if I stepped away from them, I would lose them in the whiteout. And I was thinking I'd probably have to dig a snow shelter and climb in with all the dogs and wait it out for 2-3 days. I don't know, until the storm ended. And then I thought, well, I'll try different dogs in front and see if any of them will feel like leading us forward. Because if we can get to the shelter, we'll be able to wait out the storm way more comfortably. And I was trying different dogs. I tried Peppy, my genius, who's sitting under my chair, and she was too smart to do it. And I tried, her son, Clem, who's really, really good natured. He's always in a good mood, and he was wagging his tail, and he took a couple steps and then he didn't. And I sort of went through the whole team, and because I had all the time in the world, and they were in a good mood. They just couldn't move forward through the storm. And eventually I tried a dog in the back of the team whose name is Harry, who is blind. So he always runs in the very back of the team where the other dogs can sort of steer him. And I brought him up to the front and I gave him the cue to run, and he started walking. He took a couple steps and then he passed me, and I felt his body pass me. I couldn't see it. And then he kept going, and 2 by 2, the dogs were passing me, and the sled came up and I was able to jump on it. And we were moving really slowly, but we were moving forward. And very slowly, at Harry's pace, he led us all the way to the shelter. Because he was the only dog who wasn't afraid to follow his instincts, and he could find the trail even when he couldn't see it. And that was not the only time he saved us, but it was pretty early on in my mushing career, and it changed my understanding forever, I think, of how I would be able to rely on the dogs. It taught me how naive I had been in my assumptions.
That's so cool. I knew you were going to tell that story. I tried to get it out of you, Blair.
Get it out of me? Yeah.
It's such a good one. And I remember being one of the many, many people who got emotional the first time you shared that. It's remarkable. I won't make you pick a dog, but do you have a favorite era of a sled dog's life that resonates with you, just as your favorite, because you're with these dogs for their whole lives?
I think what I love most is being with them for the changes. What's so beautiful is the dogs that I went out on that trip with this past winter, where I got surrounded by wolves. A few of those dogs had been born into my hands. And I remember all their firsts. And then they were teaching, dogs age faster than we do. And that gives them a wisdom we can learn from. And it's also such a grief for us. And it meant that there had been a period of time in these dogs' lives where I had been teaching them to grow up. And now we were in a period of time where they were teaching me to grow up. And it just the beauty of that change felt so magical.
That's very well said. Sorry. You have a human face.
That's okay.
And it's right in front of me. So Blair, climate change is a thing that is really affecting our world right now. And I'm wondering how it is uniquely affecting mushing.
Yeah. Great question. So a lot of mushing happens on dry land. That's something people don't realize. So sled dogs will run on any surface. And the challenge isn't, setting it up so they can run. It is finding something that they can pull where you will be fairly safe on that vehicle.
Got it.
They're not going to be the ones crashing into trees. You're going to be the one crashing into trees, if that makes sense. Like you're like crack the whip at the end of the line. And so there's a lot of dryland mushing, I think, is a really sort of growing sport, where sled dogs are pulling 4-wheel carts and scooters and bicycles and, people running. That's called canicross. You can just run with a dog pulling you. And that's a sport. There's a world championship. And I think something that is poignant and interesting is that even the dogs themselves are changing, because traditional sled dogs, it's a breed that has a lot of fluidity,
okay,
I would say.
That makes sense.
Because it's not a registered breed. They don't need to look a certain way. So people are always sort of like, they're like very athletic mutts. But traditionally, sled dogs have tolerated cold extremely well, to the point where I almost haven't ever seen a sled dog be too cold. But they tolerate heat very poorly.
Yeah.
And so you can be in 30 degrees, it can be below freezing, and you are worried about your dogs overheating. And so if it's 60 degrees, you're really worried about your dogs overheating.
Yeah.
And so the changes I see often have to do with the dogs themselves, like people mixing hound into their huskies, to sort of add that adaptation so they can do better in warmer weather, and you're not as worried about them overheating, which is dangerous. And so there will be pointers actually make amazing sled dogs. So a lot of sled dogs have quite a bit of pointer in them. And there are trade-offs. So traditionally huskies have very tough feet. Pointers and hounds don't have feet that are as tough. And so you need to have more booties and more foot care. You have to really be being more proactive about your dog's foot health. So there's these trade-offs, but you see a lot houndier dogs. Houndy is an actual adjective we use in the mushing community. You'll see on the spectrum from husky to houndy, and I'm not making up those words. Those are the established terms, more husky or more houndy. You'll see the breed sort of shifting a little houndier as the winters are warming.
That makes sense. The Iditarod takes some heat from animal welfare groups. As someone who clearly loves your dogs, how do you sit with that? What are they talking about? I completely understand why people are worried about dog sledding, especially if they haven't seen it. Because I think most people think of a dog running 100 miles in a day, and they think there's no way that dog is choosing to do that, and there's no way it's okay for them. There's no way that it's safe for them to do that. It's like an autonomy question that they're poking.
Yeah, it's an autonomy question. So like there's so many misconceptions I encounter that are so far from the truth. It's like I don't even know how to respond. Like people will think like we have whips or that like so actually a big misconception, which I've heard like very prominent podcasts and organizations say this. It is so deeply untrue, to be clear, is that if you start with a bigger team of dogs, like often with a long race, you start with a bigger team and you end with a smaller team. Like you might start with 14 dogs and end with 8. And what I have heard repeated is that is because you have left 6 dead dogs along the way.
Oh my goodness.
That the reason the team is decreasing in size is because the dogs are dying, which is, I mean, anyone who's hearing that, if I heard that, I would be protesting against
makes sense.
Just about anything, right? Yeah. And that is not the case. Usually, to be clear, usually you're sort of dropping dogs from races, it's called. Like, you're just sort of like, okay, you've gone enough. And then there's volunteers along the way who are hanging out with them, which is actually like a great thing to volunteer for. You just pet dogs all day. I would say, honestly, the biggest reason I've encountered is that if a dog just isn't eating enough calories, and so they're losing weight, and you're like, well, I don't want this dog to continue burning more calories than they're eating. So it's these very like benign reasons a dog might not continue running. But there's a lot of misconceptions around that. And, and then there are things like every now and then there will be a musher who treats their dogs poorly. And I think people understand, if they hear about a pet owner abusing dogs, they know a lot of pet owners. Maybe they're a pet owner themselves. They know that that's an exception. But if they hear about a musher mistreating dogs, they don't know a lot of mushers. So it's really easy to then jump to, that must be what everyone's like. And I think an important thing to emphasize in this sport is that there is no profit in it. I was going
to say, we recently talked about greyhound racing, and at the moment of when gambling became the incentive, not only for viewers but for those who were propagating the industry, you started to see the mistreatment kind of goes through the roof. So it's an important thing to highlight, because it speaks to the motive. It speaks to the motives not only of the mushers but of the industry.
That makes so much sense. Wow, I didn't think about that. But yeah, I've often thought I am so grateful in a way. I mean, it's difficult. Mushers are scrambling often. Mushers, everyone has another job. A lot of mushers I know are nurses, actually. And a lot of them are veterinarians or married to veterinarians. But there's no financial incentive. In fact, you are putting all your money into it. And so the incentive becomes, why would you put all of your time and money and effort into this? It has to be for love of the dogs. And I think that is the incentive we should have. That is good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You just launched a podcast called What to Carry, What to Burn, which is a wonderful name. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So What to Carry, What to Burn. I love wilderness survival stories, and I love storytelling. And so it's one of my latest storytelling projects. And I am just researching different survival stories and then telling them almost like a campfire story is the idea. Like we're camping out, our dogs are taking a nap. We're done mushing for the day, and now it's time for campfire stories. And I am getting so into these stories. I mean, I've been getting a really wonderful response from people who say they have no interest in survival stories, which is like, that's my goal.
Yep.
But like, these stories are wild, and I want to add more dog sledding stories. The first story, there's only 3 episodes out so far. And the first one has some sled dogs in it.
Okay.
But there's definitely going to be more sled dog stories in the future. But these stories are wild. Like the ones I just finished were about 2 shipwrecks where the castaways were stranded on the same island at the same time for over a year and didn't know about each other.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And these are all true stories. And so one of the groups of guys, they worked together. They took care of each other. They built a house from scratch. Everything they needed, they found a way to invent. They made soap. They made shoes. They learned how to make boots. They became really good friends with this sea lion they named Royal Tom. Like they were very caring about their environment. They ended up, after close to 2 years, when they realized no one was coming to save them, they decided to build a ship from scratch and save themselves, for which they had to create a sawmill from scratch and a forge from scratch and forge thousands of nails and carpentry tools from scratch. And then these 5 guys built a ship and sailed themselves to safety.
Blair, I'm not, for everyone's clarity, I'm not built for anything like that. Do not strand me on any type of island. I'm giving up immediately. Same thing with like a general Armageddon, like an general apocalypse.
Yeah.
I hope the asteroid hits me. Like, I hope I'm the first to go, because I'm not making it very far.
You can be on my apocalypse team.
Okay, well, if that's an option, then I might hang in there for a little bit.
Yeah, you're lovely and funny.
A little bit. Those do not matter in a post-apocalyptic world.
They absolutely matter. Are you kidding?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, stop it.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
And actually, part of what's interesting in researching these survival stories is like how many people survive through things that we don't think of as traditional skills. Like people think survival skills are about toughness and like being macho. And so much of it is about the ability to like hold on to love for someone else who you're trying to get home to, or, you know, sort of create beauty. Like it's interesting. The women I'm seeing in these survival stories will often like make beautiful clothing as they're like fighting to survive. And I think those are really interesting dynamics. But the second shipwreck on the island at the same time had, I would say, very different leadership from the first one. And there were 21 guys, and they devolved into hunting each other for cannibalism. So
it was. I'm assuming, we won't spoil the episode, but I'm assuming it's a lovely parallel of these two, of an overall story. You get these two very different.
It's like two good. Well, God, that's terrible to say. Narratively, it is. It allows for an elegant structure.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not good. These men were stuck, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. What to carry, what to burn. If you care to jump in.
We're drinking again over here.
I'll drink too.
I'm actually wearing a watch today. That was a lot. That was a long one. Wow. Blair, thank you so much for joining us. Just the hint of a story that you gave us is incredibly intriguing. If someone wants to support sled dogs or mushers in general, where should they look?
I would say one of the best things you can do if you want to learn more about sled dogs and mushing, I'm just sort of thinking like support sled. Like there are some, I think the best thing you can do is go to a race. And I think, you know, I say race, a lot of people think like a race is like everyone's trying to win and the dogs are running. So like, think of it more like your neighborhood 5K.
Okay. Everyone's
bringing their sled dogs out to have a good time and be on a cool trail, and they're getting t-shirts and the dogs are having fun. Like that's what the vibe is more like. And, but races always need volunteers. And they're super kid friendly. Kids love them. And you'll get to see like beautiful, happy dogs. And it's just really, really fun. It's like a fantastic thing to do on a weekend in the winter. And there's great races around like basically anywhere there's snow. So like, you know, I know like Oregon has races, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Maine, New York, like, let alone like everywhere farther north of there. There may be a race closer to you than you realize. And there's dryland races and they're just fun. Like it's just like a dog party. Go have fun. Like if you love it, come back, maybe start volunteering. It's really a community-based sport and it is way more accessible than people think it is. It's a thing that you can like see and do and be part of the fun.
Wonderful. Yeah, I can't, when we were setting up this interview, I couldn't believe I still hadn't gotten out there and experienced it for myself. So I'm with you. I'll be joining.
I got to take you someday.
Yeah, please do. We'll set it up. Yeah. Blair, a question that I ask all of my favorite people, this is how I end every interview, is why do we love dogs?
I heard once, and I really wish I knew who to credit for this idea. So perhaps you know, because you are truly the expert. In which case, please tell me where I got this idea from, because I did not invent it. The idea I heard was that, you know, like as humans, it's up for debate whether we can have soulmates, you know, romantically. One certainly can argue that we can. But as a species, our species soulmate is dogs. And they are oriented toward us, and we're oriented toward them. And that goes back for as long as we've both existed.
That's very well said. That's beautiful. I actually haven't heard that yet.
You haven't heard that? Where is it from?
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure there's similar sentiments out there, but I have not heard that verbatim, so I can't help you there.
I want to say maybe the writer Bronwyn Dickey.
Okay. We will put a little
years ago, maybe. But I am not sure.
Okay.
But that's like in the back of my head, I think maybe from her writing.
If we cannot find it, we will attribute it to Blaire Braverman.
No. Don't give me credit for it. I know that I didn't come up with it.
Blaire, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your lovely dogs with us and all of the. It's just, again, I think it's the reason you have such a strong community is because you have a shared interest, but you are expanding it for the people that care a lot. And I really appreciate it. I've been, enjoying your content for years, and we will leave links to everywhere people can follow you. But good luck on this next chapter, and we'll be watching.
Oh, it's so good to talk to you, and you, Jessica. You are lovely. Good luck. Good luck in your future endeavors, Jessica.
I think,
and you.
Thank you so much. She's a priority. I think her display on this episode will likely find her a home quite quickly. So
I hope so.
She was a good candidate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blaire.
You take care.
You too. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, this absolute angel, who I knew was going to be good, but then she excelled even during the interview, is available for adoption from Real Good Rescue here in LA. She is small and perfect and delightful and other synonyms. And she's free. So I don't know what you're waiting on, but come get her. I don't think she's going to last very long. So not her life. So sorry, Jessica. I didn't mean to concern you. She's not going to last long without a home. That still doesn't sound good. You know what I mean. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're listening to this, add us to your playlist on Apple or Spotify, and we will see you next week with another Adoptable special guest.
Oh, that looks like a good dog. That's a good dog. Yeah.